My mother liquidated my inheritance to bail out my older sister's failing business and kicked me out when I refused to sign. 12 years later, she cornered me at my own restaurant, demanding I surrender everything I had built because ruining my life once simply wasn't enough. Natalie was a walking financial disaster. If she needed capital, Mom found a way. If her husband Derek lost another investment, Mom called it an unjust tragedy. I was the invisible daughter, expected to shrink so Natalie could shine. When I was 19, I came home from my culinary apprenticeship to find Mom and Natalie reviewing legal documents at the dining table. Mom calmly explained that Natalie's holistic wellness clinic was facing bankruptcy, and they were liquidating the $65,000 trust fund my late grandmother left me. That money was my only chance to open a bakery. I said absolutely not. Natalie scoffed, calling me a selfish child. Mom used her icy, authoritative voice. We are saving your sister's livelihood. Sign the release or get out. I grabbed my duffel bag and left. I slept on a cot in the bakery storage room for 3 months. Eventually, the head pastry chef let me rent his basement. I worked double shifts, saved aggressively, and ignored my family's existence. What I didn't know was that taking my trust wasn't their only crime. 2 years later, a forwarded letter from the ears arrived at my new address. It was a tax delinquency notice. I requested my employment history. Mom and Natalie had listed me as a phantom consultant on the clinic's payroll, drawing a $54,000 annual salary in my name to evade taxes. They forged my signature on W-2s and funneled cash into offshore accounts. I reported the fraud to the ears and handed over my authentic tax returns. I had the paper trail, but I was exhausted. I paid a tax attorney $3,200 to clear my name, letting the feds handle the clinic without telling my family I was the whistleblower. I just wanted peace. I spent the next decade grinding in commercial kitchens. By 31, I owned a highly successful upscale dining venue in downtown Portland. Last weekend was our 2-year anniversary gala. I foolishly allowed my family to attend, hoping time had softened the resentment. Mom arrived with Natalie and Derek. Natalie spent the evening inspecting the imported chandeliers and interrogating my manager about our profit margins. Near the end of the night, she pulled me into the private dining room. Mom followed and locked the doors. Natalie's clinic is being seized by the federal government, Mom stated, skipping pleasantries. She needs cash to settle the liens, and Derek's assets are frozen. You are going to sign over 30% of this restaurant's equity to them. I stared at them stunned. You want me to surrender my business? Natalie crossed her arms. You don't need all this wealth. Family supports family. I walked over to the mahogany credenza and pulled out a manila envelope. I had kept it in my office safe for a decade. I dropped it onto the tasting table. Mom frowned. What is this? That is the federal whistleblower dossier I filed when I was 21, I said. Natalie froze. I spread the documents across the table, the fake W-2s, the forged payroll checks, and the ears agent's final determination letter. Derek picked up a bank statement, his face draining of color. Natalie, you told me these accounts were legitimate offshore investments. They were tax evasion, I said. Mom's voice escalated. You are deliberately trying to destroy your sister's marriage. I pointed to the forged consultant contract. They spelled my last name wrong on the direct deposit authorization. The room fell dead silent. I looked at Natalie. While I was sleeping on flour sacks, you were stealing my identity to fund a fraudulent clinic. The trust fund was just the appetizer. Natalie stammered, asking why she wasn't in prison if I reported her. Because federal investigations take years to build a case, I replied. And it looks like they finally finished. Mom tried to grab my arm, her eyes desperate. Please, they are going to take her home. You have to help us. I stepped back. No, you stole from the daughter who asked for nothing. Now you demand I hand over my life's work to save criminals. The answer is no. Derek threw the papers down and walked out the door without looking at his wife. Natalie started sobbing, begging me not to abandon her. I will pay for your defense attorney, I said, because everyone deserves a fair trial. But you aren't getting a single share of my restaurant. I called security and had them escorted out. I stayed in the private room, poured a glass of vintage wine, and listened to the jazz band. My phone buzzed with an angry text from Mom. I blocked the number and took a sip.